The big question here on Friday's morning kick around, a bit of a change of direction for us here. How about a Friday free for all, Jason, and ask me anything on morning kick around? We've got some random notes teasing a big announcement for next week. Where should we start here to wrap up our week here on morning kick around before the holiday weekend? Was this technically, at least in the Midwest, this is technically the last week of summer.
Yeah, we are. That is always a little sad, right? When you hit the end of the summer. Now, school has already started, at least for my older one. I got a little one who's going to preschool on Tuesday. But yeah, that's the thing. I think we're gonna go. I think I got a pool party I might be attending tomorrow, but that's it. Then summer's over, and then we got to get into fall. And I love fall. I guess. We want to start out with a question. What's your favorite season, Rob? What's your favorite season of the year?
Oh man, it's got to be spring. Springtime in college was probably the best time ever in life, so I got to go with spring. But it is awfully nice here in the fall. The peripheral, like couple weeks of the transitions between when it's way too cold here or way too hot in the summer. Those transition months, spring and fall. There's usually a couple good weeks of it, and fall's pretty good. I can't hate on it, but there's a foreboding dark time coming. So I'll if I'm gonna choose, you're gonna back me into a corner. I'll say spring's my favorite, even though
okay,
nice.
that's a fine choice. I prefer autumn myself, but I like spring as well. Now, obviously, when the calendar changes for soccer in America, or at least MLS, I don't know how that's going to affect our moods about the seasons. But speaking of MLS, and we focused a lot on USL today. How about this for a question? Last minute, grabbed a friend of the show, excellent soccer writer over at The Athletic, Jeff Rueter. We're going to throw him up right now. He is calling in to MK Kick Around, in Morning Kick Around to help us out with a question we asked. When did we ask this question? On Monday, Rob? We asked a question about the marketplace for USL players for MLS clubs. So we had the move, right? The high profile signing. It was $300,000, which is not a crazy amount of money these days, but it is something. Minnesota United signing a player out of USL, and it got us thinking about, is there a market? Jeff has written on this in the past. It's been a little while, but Jeff, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I'm a fall guy myself personally, so
hey,
this is where it's at. But like spring is a fine second pick. Those transitionary seasons, like it's a blessing. It really is to be between the two.
That is fair. All right, so Jeff, Mamadou Dieng goes from Hartford to Minnesota, and it got us thinking about the marketplace for players from USL to go into MLS to be purchased. I mean, in other places in the world, this is it seems like it's common practice. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that championship players move up to the Premier League, not just through promotion, but through purchases on a fairly regular basis.
Absolutely.
Is that a thing that's happening or not happening? And again, like, how do we kind of think about that marketplace within MLS and American soccer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sort of coinciding question that always accompanies why aren't there more lower division players getting purchased by MLS clubs for transfer fees, right? And not just maybe getting a trial in February and then sticking on as guy 26 on a squad. I mean, a lot of it is what is the gap between, the top players in the second division of the USL Championship or, the let's say the bottom options in Major League Soccer. And I think that right now a couple of factors are playing against the USL. First of all, MLS has a much better academy. So there isn't the same sort of need to fortify the domestic portion of your squad if you have a functioning academy. If you're a Columbus Crew, Seattle Sounders, New York, Dallas, RSL, whatever the case may be, Philly, you can get 5, 6, 8 homegrown players dependably. So you're really only identifying 22 other players at that point, right? And in the past, it used to be you might have 1 or 2 guys who came through your academy. You might have your Bill Hamids, your Will Trapps, but you still needed to get a lot of numbers. And so you were looking at the NASL at the time and the USL as well to try to find some of those diamonds in the rough. MLS Next Pro also complicates things a little bit, but I will say in a way, MLS Next Pro has also helped identify players who might be more of a Diego Luna or Fidel Baraja sort of profile, who are, maybe being overlooked in their MLS academy, not sort of viewed as one of the top, like we need to accelerate the track of growth and get him onto an MLS field as soon as possible. Okay, well then let me back out. Let me go to the Barca residency, then sign with the El Paso Locomotive, and Real Salt Lake will still be scouting us, come calling, and I can still have a path to the U.S. men's national team if you're Diego Luna, right? So I think that Next Pro is helping push certain players who just want pro minutes as soon as possible and see that next pro really is, a reserves league that doesn't have many spectators or, grown men coming up against you for headers, things like that. But at the same point now, that means MLS teams have to have, and these sporting directors need to have the humility to say, it's not that I was wrong about that guy. It's that he needed the development at a higher level. And yes, it is worth investing in where he's at now and his future, even if at the time we kind of let him walk.
When we talked about this subject earlier in the week, we had some commenters saying that perhaps MLS directors and in general don't like to pull up USL players just to not maybe emphasize USL or shine a light on USL or even accept the fact that there might be a closer gap in talent. Would you say that there's any of that going on?
I don't think there's that prejudice. I understand why that's like a enticing sort of narrative to say that they just kind of look down and it's this other league that's kind of competing. MLS sporting directors aren't worried about soccer wars, right? They're not necessarily sweating out what is the future. Is the USL going to be building a Division One that can overtake us? No, they just want to find the best way to improve their team. And I think that you look and that $300,000 spent for Jiang to move from Rueter of The Athletic to Minnesota United. Okay, well, there's some sporting directors who would rather spend that $300,000 to bring in an 18-year-old prospect from another country or sign like the best player from Costa Rica who is still playing in the domestic league. Like that fee can still go a pretty long way in other parts of the world where you look and then you're comparing the USL player on the merit. And there are going to be benefits for the USL player where they've already played in the United States and they've already had the travel, they've had the rigors, they've had the bus trips.
Jeff, the other thing I think that we pondered is when you think about sporting directors, general managers, whatever title they're carrying, there are plenty of Americans, don't get me wrong, but there are also guys that come here from other places and kind of bring their knowledge base from Europe or whatever. And I just wonder if maybe they just have a blind spot on this because, hey, look, if Ernst Tanner is going to go look for a player, he's going to go look for a player in Austria or in Belgium or in Germany. Looks like maybe we lost Jeff. Did we lose Jeff?
Yeah, do you still have Jeff? Jeff can hear you.
Here he is.
Jeff can hear you. Okay. There could be some truth to that. I could see it. I think that especially if they have their contacts and their connections, they're going to lean into their Rolodex a bit heavier than just, kind of blind faith and some other things. But I think that at the same point, Minnesota United's chief soccer officer who would have brokered the deal with Hartford, Khaled El Ahmad, he's Swedish. He's worked for Barnsley before this. Now he was also a scout for City Football Group, so he is used to looking at the region. But I think that is very true. It's going to come down to how each chief soccer officer and their sporting department wants to identify talent. And some of them are frankly just going to say, let's bring in players from abroad. Let's bring in players who fit a different profile. Or maybe if we're spending transfer fees in general, these players better be ready to see the field immediately. And there might be some concerns about the transferability and how immediately a USL player could adapt to MLS, especially in the middle of a season without a preseason.
Just kind of as a final thought on this, Jeff, would you say that this pathway between USL and MLS, like this deal that we're talking about here with Dieng, do you think this is a one-off because this is a standout young, like an aspiring player? Is this a one-off thing, or is this a trend that there might be a bit of a more of an active, organic ecosystem moving up and down the ranks within North American soccer?
Well, one move isn't going to make a trend, right? But at the same point, I think that you can look at, say, that there have been one or two young dynamic players moving up every single year. I mean, Diego Luna obviously is only going to further incentivize those sorts of scouting pursuits, but Fidel Barajas also moved to RSL and was sold very quickly to Chivas. There will be those players as long as the USL is promoting them. I will say one other thing that has really changed over the last few years is Major League Soccer's expansion has stopped looking at the lower divisions. And that was such a crucial way for players, not just to be like, hey, I've been on FC Cincinnati or Nashville SC or Minnesota United for years, they'll bring me up. But also if it's their final year in the second division, okay, well, maybe I'm going to sign with them. It's basically an extended trial period as they're building their roster. And if they're struggling to find depth at certain areas, my number is going to be called even quicker. That's not happening anymore. And so that obviously also kind of closes one of the paths. So now it is, to your point, very case by case, very much one player moving to one club rather than a few at a time. And hopefully just as USL sporting departments sophisticate, as more teams have general managers and not just the coach in charge of recruitment, as they start to build scouting, as they start to kind of identify different profiles of players that they can scout and not, continually keep transferring from within, I think that'll make it a little easier for MLS clubs to look and say there's fresh talent in the USL that they need to look at a bit closer as well.
Yeah, interested to see how Mamadou Dieng impacts Minnesota United moving forward. I'm sure that conversation is altered based on his success following this move from USL to Major League Soccer. So thank you for filling us in on that, Jeff. Before we let you go, what's the next exciting project or article that viewers should look out for from you?
Yeah, there's a few. There's one I've been working on for months that I'm trying to time with this international window, and we're kind of down to the wire. I see it, but it's about a position that America used to develop as well as anywhere in the world and hasn't for about a decade now. And so we're looking into the mysteries more of why the American goalkeeper pipeline has dried up rather than, wow, it has dried up, hasn't it? So stay tuned for that.
Very interesting stuff. Thank you, Jeff Rueter of The Athletic, senior writer for The Athletic. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Around. Be sure to check out his work. Interested to see that. Yeah, the American goalkeeper pool, not what it once was, clearly.
Let me also throw in, Jeff has a very good look at Pochettino's choices for this roster and the things that are coming up with the MLS question in the comments he made. So go check that out on The Athletic as well.
All right. And before we wrap up for the week, a couple announcements. We are holidaying it on Monday. So there's going to be no live program on Monday. And then Wednesday, be sure to tune in on Wednesday. We have a big announcement. We've been kind of working on it in the background for a little while now. But big announcement on Wednesday, a big first for Morning Kick Around. So be sure to be tuned in on Wednesday morning. You got anything before we go to our holiday weekend?
No, have a great weekend. We'll catch you guys on Wednesday. I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating weekend of soccer with the Fab Four plus whatever else we missed. So thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. And as we continually say, please help spread the word about the show. That big announcement coming up next week is I think really going to be huge for us and maybe help us reach more people. But you can help us out by sharing the show, sharing a particular segment, letting people know that we're out here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Be safe. Enjoy the last weekend of summer. And until next Wednesday, everybody, enjoy your soccer.